but I have a leak, a gas leak at my house somewhere, and the gas company is there, and he's trying to work on it and find it, and he said when he finds it, he'll call me. And so I have to take the call in order to authorize him to do the work needed. And I don't want to miss it because, obviously it's a gas leak, it's kind of an important thing. So if you suddenly see me, Sonia, just turn it over to you or walk out, and you have to just pick it up from wherever.
Good morning.
Just like as a head up.
Good morning. Come over here, you guys.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you? Looking so fancy. Look at you. How are you? Good to see you. I know, I was looking for you guys. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me get you a chair.
I got one right here.
Oh.
I don't know, just if you want to get two more in
Yeah.
case people walk in, there's no more chairs. After.
There, now we're better, right? Okay, so with that disclosure, just in case I walk out, I just have to talk to the gas company to authorize the work, so they won't come back. You know how that is, you know how they are, it's horrible. So I wanted to open today. I think that, well, in any market, not only in this market, but I think that it's important to share like certain challenges or certain things that happen in transactions with each other. Because a lot of the time, you guys may not see I see all the problem files, right? By the time it gets to me, it's nothing but a problem. And then I've been doing that for 25 years. So I always say, you can call Rod Feldman, but I work so close with him, I'll know probably 99% of what's gonna happen with the problem. So, because I've seen it, when you live it and you experience it and you see it, then you just learn. We all kind of learn by doing. So I think that we need to share more file issues and problems that are happening. I wanted to open it, for instance, we forget a lot of the time that when we're representing a buyer and we're going to open escrow, let's say we have an EMD and it's $7,000. So on the contract, we're writing, $7,000 EMD to be deposited into escrow within 3 days. Now, on this particular issue that is happening right now, the agent did not deposit the $7,000 into escrow. Well, the buyer didn't. The agent didn't have the buyer deposit the money into escrow. And the buyer decided to cancel. They decided that they didn't want to move forward with the property. So the agent told the buyer, don't deposit the money into escrow. Okay, which in my book is good. It's not how it's supposed to be, but it is protecting your client as an agent. To say, you know what, even if we've opened escrow, you've got the 3 days, if you don't want to move forward, I would tell them, don't put the money there because it could be stuck there. Well, this agent, they did that. The mistake he made is on the cancellation, he wrote down buyer just does not wish to buy.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then later thought about it, but a couple days later did another cancellation, but it's too late by now. I mean, if people have documentation, it's too late. So cancels. Well, obviously the sellers are now mad. The seller files a small claim claim because it's under 12,500. So it's small claim. So they file a small claim action. And here's another thing. If anybody ever gets a lawsuit, even if it's small claims, even if it's minor, let me know because I can kind of navigate it, even if my name isn't on it. In this case, it was just the agent's name and the buyer's name. So what this agent did is decided to not bother me, and they just went to small claims on their own with the buyer, and the outcome was not good. So they went, and the judge, because the buyer didn't put the money into escrow as required, ordered that the money be given to the seller, the $7,000. But here's the problem, is there's a lot of small claims court judges. I have done this over and over EMD issues and all sorts of things, that they don't know real estate law. Like these people that are, judges, they really don't know a lot of, they're not, specializing in real estate. So a lot of the times when you go, you have to be prepared to talk to them about it and to say, well, you know what, Judge? Yes, my buyer did not deposit the $7,000, but I'm gonna make a request that you do an order for my buyer to place the monies into escrow. So that once the money is into escrow, at that point in time, my buyer can have the opportunity to file a small claim action so that they can receive their monies back. So it's just like little things like that. It's really, important to watch over. So I told him, I said, okay, well now what we have to do is you have to file, obviously, you have to contest it. And then when you contest it, get a date, you go in there, or, if you want me to just go, you go in there and then you tell the judge, you know what, Judge, look, yes, my buyer didn't put the money in. However, it is standard practice in real estate law that the monies be deposited into escrow. And so the order that the court gave should have had the money go into escrow, not directly to the seller, because that contradicts the contract. And then at that point, that money goes to escrow. The buyers have an opportunity to go in a second time once the money is in escrow and say, you know what, Judge, look, I couldn't move forward with the property because I didn't have money. I had a change in my financial status, or my mother got sick, or, I have a health issue. And, I really, as the buyer, I don't even know why my agent put that down, on my cancellation, but this is what happened to me. He probably just thought I didn't want the house, but you've given your buyer at least the opportunity to go in and say what happened and then get their money back, you see? So it's little things like that, as agents that we need to be able to navigate and understand how the contracts work, what could possibly happen, how can we get the money back for them, what, like little things that make that difference. So that was like a recent one. Another recent one is where, as a matter of fact, Grace is maneuvering, this one. And and I won't say, agent names, because even if it's in your file, I won't say agent. But what happens when as agents, we have to have an agency to represent our clients, whether it's a buyer or a seller. And there is no, I'm gonna help a seller sell a property, and then a buyer comes in and you wanna make the money on that sale. So you say, okay, I'll just take the 3% and I'll allow that buyer to represent themselves, because they want to represent themselves. So if a buyer ever tells you that and they say, I want to represent myself, then you say, okay, that's fine. I will, I'm representing my seller, but I'm unable to aid you, talk to you, or give you any information on any of this transaction. That means that you're representing yourself and you do all of it yourself. The agent made the mistake of taking the listing, representing the seller. And then what happened is also did things for the buyer, advise them, talk to them, opened escrow, quote unquote, for them. And so now it's a problem because the seller wants to cancel. So the seller wants to cancel the transaction. The agent, they just don't want to sell the property anymore. So basically something happened in their family. They're saying, we're going to stay in the property. We're not going to sell it anymore. So they want to cancel. I said, okay, you have to draw up the cancellation on behalf of your seller. And then she says, oh, but wait, and then told me this scenario, how, well, I don't represent the buyer, but I am talking to the buyer. It's a non-agency. I said, anytime you're talking, or it's an implied agency.
Yeah.
So now you have an implied agency because you're helping that buyer. So in the future, it's like one or the other. Either you're representing them and you're their agent, or you're not, and they have to get their own agent. So it's not these blurred lines, in between. So I said, now what you need to do, because this is now a mess. The buyer is saying, I'm demanding that you notify the seller, and they gave an outline of items that they're wanting from the seller. They want to close. They're threatening to get an attorney involved to force the sale. They're saying, we don't want to cancel, and we're demanding that you deliver this information to the seller. And I said, okay, it's like you have to stop. Don't email anymore. Don't put anything in writing anymore. Like when things start to go south and go bad, what you don't want to do as agents is overtalk. Like you don't want to overtalk and be texting and emailing and giving advice that you're not sure of, because all of that becomes evidence, and it's not evidence in our favor. So it's always cut it off. If there's a problem, don't try to resolve it, just stop, and if anything, pick up the phone and talk to them. So I said, what you're gonna do now is you pick up the phone and you call that buyer and tell them, you remember that you didn't want me representing you, and so I'm not. You need to get with escrow directly and let them know anything that you want as a buyer, and then escrow can notify the sellers on your behalf. But no more of this back and forth, right? Because it's gonna be a problem. Now, Grace comes up and says, oh my goodness, they sent me a list of items that they're, requesting from me. What do we do? What am I gonna do? And I said, escrow, they're a neutral party. So they take an instruction. The seller requested cancellation, you have to draw up cancellation based on the seller's instruction, with the money going back to the buyer because the seller is releasing the money to the buyer. You draw that cancellation up. The buyer has the right to draw their cancellation up if wished, but they're obviously in this case wanting to force, the sale. If they wanted cancellation with monies going in one direction or another, the buyer would do that. In this case, they want to force the sale. So all you can do is say, I'm escrow, I'm a neutral party. And yes, if you have an attorney and you want to do that, then you need to go ahead and correspond with them, because I can only take instructions, and this escrow is now at a standstill. But these little things are what create a mess. And unknowingly, sometimes we're thinking that it's okay and it's innocent and it's not going to be a problem. But at the end, these are the things that actually become big problems. And you think, oh, it's easy, people will go away. Sometimes you meet that one person that they're not going to go away. And they will file the lawsuit. And then you will find yourself in a deposition, and you will find yourself wasting time, trying to defend something, and also paying your deductible for insurance, and there's cost, and it's a lot of different things. So and I'm just going to give you the top 3 today, and then I'm going to turn it over to more positive things, because yes, yes, because it's little things that become, because as agents, sometimes you'll get a seller and then, the buyer, and let's say they know each other and you're talking and you say, oh, there's no harm in it. You know what? I'm going to represent my seller. And then, yeah, you want to represent, it's okay. You can ask me any questions. I'm here to know. It's easy to say that when you're in dialogue, but no, you cannot do that, because you have to have an agency with your client. And if they don't want to pay a commission, more power to them. Usually it's the seller that pays anyway, but if they don't want to, for whatever reason, maybe the seller didn't want to pay more, who knows what happened before that, but they can represent themselves or find somebody that will. This is why in reality, dual agencies, they are fine, but a lot of the time it can be you have to be very, very careful whenever you're doing a dual agency, because it can wind up, in a potential problem. You have to be very neutral.
Question on the first scenario. So the agent put that buyer remorse essentially, right?
Basically,
What would have been the better option to put on that?
health issue, financial issue, sickness in the family. Yeah, like,
So is
like.
it within the contingency period or no?
Job.
Even, well, in this case, the money was never put into escrow,
So that's what
so
I'm saying, how soon was it canceled?
it was canceled prior to the 72 hours.
But in this,
So-
at this time,
Really,
why they
contract.
took them to the court, but it's.
So
Because
basically,
technically-
but what happens is this, I'm like, it would be, they're not performing, so then they would get her to perform cancel, but they shouldn't keep the deposit. Yeah, I mean, that's usually what happens.
You have,
Yeah, because they
but
have a.
on the contract, if you don't do anything, like if you sit there on it until the last minute or like a day after, if you sit on that time frame, the buyer is required to put that EMD into escrow. And if they don't put it in, if you send that notification even like a day later, then, and the money's never put in there, they have to put that money into escrow to make it a whole escrow.
Okay, so the point is, so how the correct thing is, how we can proceed is they have to put the money in the escrow and then cancel.
It usually works out okay.
Yes.
Like usually it works out okay,
Sometimes
Sonia,
we
like,
have multiple offers.
yes,
and so
normally it
the-
does, but if you get that one person that
Yeah.
it sits, that is a jerk, yeah, like if they're a jerk, then your buyer has to put that money into escrow
Yeah.
within that time frame. Like the minute you accept an offer and that means that you've committed to putting that EMD into escrow.
Yeah, and I have to put the money and then cancel the escrow.
Yeah, like you have to put the money and then cancel the
Yeah,
escrow.
part of the procedures, part of the rules.
But then what we do as agents, and I do, like, we all do this, because let's just say if you open escrow and you know that your buyer doesn't want to move forward, like 99.999% of the time, people are reasonable, they move on and they have another offer. But you get that one person that really knows the contracts, and they demanded that that money be put into escrow per the contract, because technically it should. And
Yeah,
then
because it's already, the documents are.
it's already executed, and the demand is there to place the money into escrow.
I have a situation today. I present supplier, and we went last week to show 6 properties,
Uh-huh,
and my buyer chose 3 properties. Told me, okay, we can offer it for the 3 of them regarding the market. It's too hard to get houses because there is a lot of inventory. I submit 3 offers from 2 days. Today, 10:30, 10:40, 10:55, I accept 3 offers. I did it, and all of them told me, congratulations, we accepted, we already accepted.
Congratulations.
all 3 offer, well, then you're in trouble, your buyer's in trouble. Because, and you know what, agents, they do that all the time, because
I
they go
didn't
out there.
expect that.
No,
I tried
yeah.
for 3 months to submit
They-
offers, I didn't accept.
Yeah, you go out there and then you say, I don't wanna like waste time waiting, you know, and it's so hard to get offers accepted, and I'm gonna slap 5 against the wall, and I'm gonna see which one sticks. Well, now your buyer is technically obligated to place that EMD in every single one of those escrows. You see, like, if you get a jerk on the other end, because that's what I call it, in reality it is, like, because it's easy to just move on, like most of the time, if we have a listing, we just move on. But there are people out there that really do know the contract, and once you write that contract, you are required to put that money into escrow within the time frame.
Okay, for this situation, what I have to do?
You need to hope that they're very nice agents, and you just talk to them and call and say that you're, that they don't want the property. You know?
They have
Change their
information,
mind.
they have a-
Yeah, they change their mind. You just call
So
them.
what I usually say, because I do, I, knock on wood, I've never had that issue.
Knock on the wood, Sonia, you're a high
But
producer.
I'm curious, because I don't see that in the contract. I'm like, I study the
It's- yeah.
contract and I don't see that there, so, thankfully it's an advantage.
It's an escrow law. It's, so our contract says 72 hours.
I don't know, that's.
Yeah, it says you have 72 hours to place the EMD as a buyer into escrow. And if everybody signs that contract, that money has to be put into escrow in that timeframe.
Yeah, because you, typically what has happened in the past is if they don't, notice to perform cancel, like,
Yeah,
you just
see
cancel,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, there's nothing that, no time.
That's the reasonable agent,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
but on, we actually just, that kind of happened, same thing to us, we submitted offers, and when, you're a badass agent, when you don't get counters, and you just get acceptances.
This is what I found 3 emails, each one, I can say so, everybody go together, because it's the same, half an hour, congratulations, we open escrow today, congratulations, we open escrow.
So get on the phone.
4 months is
You need to
applied
call your
to.
lawyer.
So you get on the phone, and then obviously be nice, as you are, you're always very nice. And then you just tell them your buyer changed their mind, and then,
Well, usually, just so you guys know what I say when that happens, is I tell them, you know what, we had wrote an offer about a week and a half ago, we didn't get it, but we just got notified that the other buyer canceled, and they're giving us the opportunity to get it, and they prefer that one.
that's beautiful, that
And they're
works,
like,
yeah.
no problem, I get it.
Because if you tell them, you know what, they just changed their mind, then it's kind of like, yes,
They don't know what they know.
yeah, and then if you get somebody that really knows that money should go and be deposited into, you can't just not, you can't not fulfill the
Like,
contract.
clients to go play the lotto,
So-
because they just
Yeah,
get it.
they hit the lotto, because think about it, every other aspect of the contract we have to follow, right? Or else there's consequences,
Yeah.
well, that as well, you have to follow it, and it has to be deposited, because that is the seller's right to be able to have the opportunity to dispute that money, which it kind of goes along the lines of, I get a lot of, calls regarding EMDs, because see, we have probably in the escrow company, I would say, I could ask Norma, probably $400,000 worth of EMDs, like just because, every, I think, year she has to do the sheet back to the state, and it gives if people don't claim it or go to small claims, she has to clear the trust account and then send it to the state of California. And then once, that happens, then people have to go and get it through the state of California. But people don't realize, like, the minute you put the money in escrow, like the minute you I always tell agents, do not put like a $50,000 EMD in there, or you have people, like, do not do that, because when you do that, that's the disputed amount of money, you don't want to do that to your buyer. Instead, if like there's a requirement for 50,000 within a week, you put the limit, the 12,500 small claim, max in. As I think that's ideal if you can. A lot of times with higher properties, they don't allow that, but at least try and then say, I'll do an increased deposit within 5 days of whatever amount, and then they have that money there. But should something blow up, then at least you get the other money back, and then that is going to be the, the disputed amount.
So when
So-
is the
But-
best time to increase the deposit?
You could do it right
Anytime,
away,
anytime.
yeah, as long as it's not the EMD.
So, I'm sorry,
So,
the first amount is that the amount is going to dispute if they are disputing something.
yes, the EMD,
Oh.
the earnest money deposit is always what is disputed. And then the earnest money deposit, like there's timelines, in escrow that we follow. And I get, let's say, outside agents, that'll call and they'll say, you know what, your agent, and they're not releasing our, EMD. And then I say, well, yes, you're correct according to the contract that your buyer should get the EMD, but the sellers, they're not listening. Like, they're not going to sign the escrow release form. They, for whatever reason, our sellers feel like they deserve the money. But you need to make them sign, like, that is not fair. We followed, the timeframes on the contract perfectly. I said, I understand that, but unless escrow has an instruction to release the money signed by both parties where they agree on it, escrow will not release the money.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter that your buyer is right. There's nothing that, I'm gonna get an attorney and sue you. Well, actually, I advise that. I advise that you get an attorney so that you can go ahead and dispute the EMD
Yeah.
issue. You know, and in this case, it's under
And
12,000.
don't be one of those agents where you write on your counter offer escrow to automatically release deposit.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Mm-mm.
I've had my
Okay,
EMD
for this
stuff
situation, what
done.
I have to go forward with what?
You need to,
Clients to pick the
Yeah.
house they want, okay?
There you go.
Decide what house that they want, and then on the other two, just let them know that, you know, that unfortunately your client can't move forward. I had someone, we had a fully executed offer, this happened to me last weekend on one of my listings, and they said that someone in their family committed suicide, so whether that's true or not, I don't know.
But it's a
But
legitimate
I
reason.
already I know for the escrow, if I didn't put the EMD for within
3 days.
3 days, it's already canceled automatically.
I know, but Jennifer's saying that they could take it further, so just call them and cancel.
I would call them and say, for whatever a good reason that your buyer can,
So, really quick, so Yasmin and I just kind of went through this, because we submitted offers, and I'm teaching her very well. So, but her client is an escrow officer. So the offer that she got accepted, she basically told Yasmin, I have 3 days to put money into escrow, I know this, and if I decide I don't want that house, I'm not putting my money into that escrow.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
came from her,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because and I would advise my buyers to do that too. You know why? Just to take a chance, and let me tell you why. Because the worst thing that could possibly happen is that you get an order like this person to put the money in. That's the worst thing that could happen. But look at the trouble
That they
that the
went
sellers had to go through to get that done. So I would always advise, I would do the same thing. I would say, if you don't want the house, don't put the money in, take a chance. Because most, you know, if you
But
put the
like you
money in.
said, communicate with them and just let them know. I think that's the most, maybe they were
Yes.
avoiding them, you know, as it is already, you know.
Yeah,
Sometimes
but
when you get into
that-
escrow, you're already fighting
Yeah.
the agent.
But that, Jennifer, I think is like, how you say in Spanish is un arma de dos filos, so like, enough with two. So because the agent, the selling, the listing agent can put you in the red, it's like blacklist, it's like, oh, this agent is not working
Because I'm
good, so next time they have a house,
already waiting.
so maybe they not cooperate or they not going to accept the offer because, so if I not communicate with him, with the listing agent, how?
So I think there's a way to do things, and if I was the buyer's agent, you know, I would not willingly put, maybe you guys could wait till after, so that it's not, you know.
Okay.
Like, if I was what was I saying? If I was the buyer's agent, I wouldn't put my buyer's money into escrow, because I would call the listing agent, and then what I would say is, for whatever reason, you know what, my buyer can't purchase, they lost their job, somebody is sick, or whatever it is, you know, whatever the reason is, because you want to protect ultimately your buyer's money.
Exactly.
And so like that's kind of the right way to do it, and it's taking a chance when you put the money in, if you know that your buyer does not want the property, because the minute it's in escrow, then you have to have the signed instruction by both parties to release that money.
What I try to say is like, just don't put the money in escrow, but communicate. Like Sonia
Yes.
said, just communicate, because as a listing agents, what we want, communication.
Communication, but that's the
Communication, you
usual
know?
problem in this
Exactly.
business, is that people, they don't communicate, and then they
Exactly.
run into these problems. They just say, you know what, screw you, listing agent, my buyer's not putting that money in.
Yeah.
You know, have a great day.
Yeah.
And that's not, right? Like, you know what, Sonia, go pound sand, you know, we're not gonna, it's kind of like, it upsets you.
Remember,
Rather-
champions, we are not like that.
We're not,
We are- no, we are- we are
no,
okay.
and we don't have this problem at the office.
We don't have it.
I had a client in COVID,
Uh-huh.
and we were in escrow about to close. I had the buyer, and he passed away and the seller insists to close.
After, wow.
I said, I'm canceling my client pass.
Passed away.
They said, we need to close. I go,
You see,
no. Yeah, it
Wow,
was.
that is horrible.
They gave them the certificate, the death certificate.
Oh, wow.
They took the money.
Wow.
They didn't want to give me the money. I go, really? That person is dead.
And
And
still,
the family
see,
don't have your time. They need the money.
And you already.
it's things like that,
Yeah.
but in
that was the
reality,
seller.
see, that could have been, if they wanted the money, then at that point, you know, the seller can't sign.
We were about to close.
They passed, and so the money is just escrow.
Oh,
You know, it becomes part of the probate if they don't have a trust. If they have one, then, you know, the trustee can, but it should have just stayed in escrow, that money.
Really?
Yes, because the seller cannot sign
Yeah.
a release. So I don't know how they released that money.
Right.
Boy, I had a hard time.
Yeah,
It's-
Yeah,
it's your-
one last signature.
yeah. So that should have, you know,
It's
stays
your
there.
fault. You didn't
They
give them
grabbed
the
his
vaccine.
hand. They're like, you're dead and you can't even get peace.
Now what do I do?
Yeah.
He said the family wants the money
Yeah.
and the seller wants the money and he needed to.
And I need my commission.
So.
That's justification
Die
for
unexpectedly,
cancellation.
what happened?
No, he had cancer. Yeah, but he was, but I don't know. He wanted to buy a house for the family. But, sadly, he just passed. They were, last house anyway.
Horrible.
Yeah.
You can't even pass away peacefully.
I told you, it's your fault.
Yeah.
No?
Because you didn't ask him for vaccine.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yes, well, nothing.
Oh my goodness, you don't want to tell people that.
No, no,
You
no,
don't want to
no,
have that
no, no,
reputation.
no.
Oh my, one of us away. Oh my
I know.
God.
I don't want to-
No, you don't want to have that reputation.
That's a new one.
Yeah, in COVID.
It's just, yeah, we have to, you know.
Being close and none of them about to close.
A lot of times it's the awareness too, you know, we just have to be aware and pay attention to the clients and the sellers and communicate. One more, and then I'll just give you one more. I can go on for a month. But, you know, you have to be careful with, and I always tell people that as an agent, you have to be like very, very careful about what you text. You know, some people, they think, oh, it's just a text, it's not a contract. And like, you have to be very, very cautious of it. We had a situation, we still actually, it's ongoing, a situation where the agent, a lot of offshore China investors, they do things, you know, a little bit differently. Like there's different cultures, as you know, that kind of do business in different ways. And so they were doing business in a way where they looped our agent in because our agent was representing the seller. And once again, did not have an agency with, you know, the buyer, but they looped her in. And here she is, you know, trying to advise. She's only texting and talking to the buyer, mind you. Only texting and talking, no formal contracts, nothing. And all she does is in a text, they have a group chat, they were using WeChat. And so like you should see like the transcripts on WeChat, they're going back and forth and over on the transcript, our agent says, I advise do not transfer any money outside of escrow. I advise do not transfer any money outside of escrow. I do not advise that you guys do anything outside of escrow. I mean, she said it at least 3 or 4 times because they were saying, well, I'll just pay you $1 million outside of escrow and then, you know, like not have the price be that, and then have the price be a different amount. And, we'll just do this outside of it. And she kept saying that, well, they did transfer the money outside of escrow. And, it was a lot of money. It was close to $1 million. And what happened is the minute that the client got the $1 million, guess what? He was in debt and owed a lot of money to everybody and is suddenly broke and doesn't have the money, doesn't have apparently anything, no assets. They didn't check, like this was an opening dialogue, didn't check the property, didn't check anything, just literally did this, which to me, it's insanity. But as agents, you have to understand that certain money to some people is not a lot of money. And it could be a lot of money to others, depending on their financial status. So, if you have somebody that's used to dealing in like hundreds of millions, $1 million, it was taken, it was stolen. So we didn't even have, anything. And we got looped in to the lawsuit because of course somebody's out, money. We got looped into the lawsuit, and this poor agent, she did all she could, but we still got included. And lo and behold, they say as agents, the mistake that you made as an agent, and you're going to have liability on this. You're going to one way or another pay out on this, because the mistake that you made as an agent was even entertaining this, having the dialogue, and sending any information back and forth to both parties regarding the said property. And so the courts are deeming that now we are supposed to have better knowledge. We're supposed to be the ones that know better, do better. We're the professionals, and we're supposed to know when we back away from a situation and when the situation is not legitimate. And so it's things like that, that you just need to really be aware of, because you think it's innocent and then something happens and lo and behold, there we are. So that was also, another one regarding like not EMDs, but yeah, like transfers of initial monies.
So in that particular case, when you even encourage that we have those types of, we don't want to have those type of
You
chats. We
don't.
want to put everything in contract and.
The mistake
Yes.
that she made is sending the property information. And so had she not been sending
Involved
information,
with all the parties.
yes. And so but they're like no contracts or anything.
Mhm.
So they consider us as, the professionals. That we should be not even doing that, not even engaging in it, not even giving that information. So that was another earnest money deposit issue. Today was an EMD talk.
Yeah.
EMD contract talk, escrow talk. But these things, they happen. And then you think it's never going to be you, but we're not the exception, to the rule. Like we think that we are, like something will never happen to us, and we're not the exceptions to the rule.
So it's easy to get pulled in.
Very, because you
Yeah.
want to make a commission. We're not doing this for charity. Think about it. Like we have charities we can go and support and do, right? Like we're here to make money and to service clients and to get real estate transactions closed. And so you have like what you think is a good deal. Of course, you're going to try to nurture it, but you have to do it in the right way.
In my
Yeah.
meaning, like in getting pulled in means we could have done everything correctly, but you could still get included in that lawsuit or that transaction because people just are still happy. Sometimes they just want to sue
Yeah,
or they don't like the way things went, so.
they don't like the way things went, and it can go even further. Most people, consumers, buyers and sellers, are after monetary compensation. But when something goes to like the Department of Real Estate, because our license is also our livelihood. And, the Department of Real Estate, when it's generally a broker to broker issue or an agent to agent issue, they kind of look at it and then they're like, whatever, they just say, after a month, they look at it and the case closed. They don't really pay any attention to that. But when it's a consumer and a consumer makes a complaint against you, the Department of Real Estate will look into it, because they're there for, consumers. And so it's just these things, to be aware of, because we don't want to put ourselves into situations, you can have like a really good groove in business, and then something like this happens, and I told the agent, I go, look, like things happen, we're gonna turn it, to the insurance. This one the insurance is gonna deal with, because I have to decide which ones will be insurance and which ones, we have to just defend. But like, you have to keep moving. Like, you can't let these things, like get to your, brain, to get to your mind. You can learn from it, but like, you can't stop get so consumed with it that, it stops your business. Like, just let it there. This is gonna be 3-4 years, and then it's gonna be pending. Because the minute you're in litigation, it's, 3-4 years, and then you have to move on. But it's like, still always there, I've gotten used to it, because like something's always pending. So that feeling, stress, I don't have it with that anymore. Kind of like, right, you just get used to it, but it can be very stressful if it's your first time.
Yes.
And you're being named, and you have to go to court, and your name is on there. So people search online and they'll name RE/MAX champions and Sonia Orozco, and then they'll search, there's Sonia. Sonia's being sued, she's gonna show all over as being sued. And sometimes people look at that, so, it's just caution. Okay, enough doom and gloom. Anybody have any? But I don't usually bring like these things up, but it dawned on me this morning because I was just talking to, I was just talking to this agent, and I said, next time, like, let me know when, like, it went south, because sometimes there's little things that we can do, that may not be like even contract related, but more experience related. Like, I've had that happen, so forget this, like, we need to do this, and this to get ourselves out of this. So I that's why I thought I want to bring more things up, just to build awareness. Mhm.
Yeah, when in doubt, ask.
Yeah. So you can talk now. Sorry. Or anybody have any questions or
Well,
anything?
I think that it's good to hear, because a lot of times we don't realize that, there is a lot of, we are dealing with legal contracts. Buyers don't take it seriously. Obviously, a lot of us have experience where they're not even taking the buyer broker agreement seriously. Like, they don't realize that they're signing a contract. So I think, again, communication goes a long way. Explain to them what it means. If in the event things don't work out between, the two of us, this is what the process is to counsel. So that way they understand that conversation's been had, and same thing, I'm pretty thorough when I explain, and I feel like thinking probably has been my saving grace, because you're always gonna have times where there is a misunderstanding, especially when you're working with an agent who is sloppy, who is, maybe lazy, who doesn't understand, who is just in a hurry. Have someone overlook your contracts as well, and that's the purpose of the templates. We did templates again yesterday. Like, I'm really big on the templates for that reason, to protect yourselves. But anyways, like I said, just take it spend a little bit more time reviewing your contracts. I think that's important. Don't do it in a rush. But besides that, how are you gonna explain about the market?
And you do the Monday classes. I don't know if everybody here goes to her classes, but I always tell everybody, like, I would be like, if I was actively selling real estate, like, I could just call someone and be like, hey, I need your help with whatever contract issue. But you need to attend these things, because like, she can give you insight as to she's like, I don't know how she does it. She's like super active out there, like selling property like it's hotcakes, but it's like, when you do that, then you, like, year after year, you get the experience So then attending like those classes, you're gonna learn, about things that you could do to expedite like your business, to expedite the production, that you're generating. So I wanted to add that. I don't know if everybody here goes, but it's a good thing to go to.
It's very good and, really motivating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a good day. Mondays are a great day to have it because it's a start to the week and I think everybody's excited about it. You just never know what you're gonna learn, right?
Right.
Everybody brings something. It's not just me. I mean, everybody, brings an experience or they wanna talk about something. And so I think that's kind of what, it's actually growing. We're seeing more and more people come consistently and actually looking forward to it. They're like, hey, what are we gonna learn today? Like everybody's really excited about it. So
Why is the next week?
yeah, yeah, let's talk about this next week.
Yeah.
It's the consistency of
Yeah,
it too. Like,
exactly.
I think the more you do it and, the more like you show up, you want to be around, kind of like I was talking about the success rally, like my kids in the school and everything. You want to be around people that the expectation, like like you don't want to be around people where they have low expectations because then, you do like maybe a little bit better than that. You're like, oh, I'm amazing. I'm doing so great. But you're really not. It's just that you're comparing yourself to, somebody that isn't doing much of anything. And you're like, I'm wonderful. So you want to be, right? Like it's true. Like you want to be around people that, really have that knowledge.
Yeah, and it's so funny because, my husband's obviously my biggest pusher, so he'll tell me, oh, look this, he's like, compared to who, Sonia? To the worst or to the best?
Right, see?
What are you comparing yourself to? And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit down now.
Let me eat a slice of humble pie.
So a lot of times that helps, when you look at things, like she's absolutely right. But yeah, if you haven't been, come, it's definitely a great class. So basically, I mean, this time is, we just like to share like insights of what you guys see with the market. Obviously rates are like, and Lala can talk about that, how the rates are, kind of crazy. But I think keeping your buyers motivated and giving them that confidence, and it comes from you. So staying educated is so important to really understand what's going on. If they've been pre-approved, keep in contact with the lender, kind of, so that way too, because let's just say they're marginal and that rate is no longer available and you're out showing properties and then, now they don't qualify. Or make sure you're paying attention to tax rates. Tax rates are important because every home is different. And you could be showing them a home that's in a 1.8 tax rate and they're qualified at 1.2 and they're at the top. So pay attention to that. If you don't know how to calculate taxes, I'll show you how. It's very simple. But those are things as an agent, that's part of what you should be doing for your client because they're relying on you to give them that information. So when they tell you, hey, I want to see these 5 properties, that's the first thing that you should do is research the property. So that way, why waste your time?
And I just wanted to touch on that, Sonia. So affordability is the big thing right now, especially in California. People want to buy, and obviously people want to sell, but the point here is affordability. Can they afford that mortgage payment? Like Sonia was saying, we're not going to see the rates do anything crazy. We're still between the 6 and the 7s. We are closing loans at 6 and an 8, which is 6.125 if you don't buy it down. What I could say in the lending is we are a broker, which means we have 27 lenders that we could customize a loan for. So if you don't have your traditional conventional FHA with the 20% down, you pick up a buyer that needs a little bit more love. We need to think outside the box. That's what we're here for. And that's why being a broker is an advantage versus being a direct lender because we could shop the rate and we can shop the program. So even if you have a file and somehow they couldn't prove their income, or maybe they don't have your traditional W-2s, pay stubs, or they're self-employed, or maybe they only qualify with P&L, whatever the case might be, that's where we come in and we could customize a loan. We could shop these lenders, or maybe even the price, because we have many different lenders that do FHA or conventional, but which one is a better fit for your client? So that's what I love about working with Champions Mortgages. We can take a file and shop the best rate and the best program for them. But as far as the rates, when people are asking you, like, what are the rates like? Of course, it's based on FICO score, their credit, what you could guide your client, if they're a buyer, they're borderline, we could help them maybe improve that FICO score. Several ways we could do that is pay down debt, because if they're kind of maxing out their credit cards, one thing is if they're able to pay down debt, they could do that. Definitely get pre-approved now, pre-qualified, show the lender the pay stubs, the W-2s, because we don't want any surprises at the end. If they need down payment assistance, we're talking to just men here about there's community programs out there that can help with down payment assistance, closing costs. We are seeing now sellers being open for closing costs to also help buy down the rate. We see that with builders. So there's many different ways we could do that. I'm not attending your classes, Sonia, but I'm gonna start to, so that way we could also, start working on that aspect too, and learn and work together as a team. And one thing that I've learned here with Champions, overall the community, is the support and the trainings. If we show up like we are here, we're gonna get that support to learn from others. So we don't all know everything, but we can certainly learn together. And so working together, talking to each other, networking, hey, how, what's working for you, what's working for me. If you run into something that you get stuck on, like go to the expert, the person that has the experience. We have a wonderful broker here who has many years of experience, and she's available for us, which in other companies they're not. You never see the broker. We forget what they look like. Once in a while you'll see them, but she's available, and we have the knowledge and the experience here, so let's just take advantage of it. And of course, I'm always here on both sides of the spectrum, real estate or lending.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else has anything that they want to share, or questions, or anything?
So for, let's just say we talk about the buyer cancel, if a seller cancel, so actually we just give the EMD back. If something not right, then the seller sue, right?
So technically, a seller, there's no out of a contract for a seller unless they have a contingency, unless the buyer is okay with allowing them to.
Sometimes the seller just say, I just don't want to sell.
But for what reason though?
Yeah, but you technically, there's no out of a contract. I mean, it's up to the buyer. Like you said, they could force the sale if they want to go that far.
It's costly.
Yeah, it's very costly. I think, again, that comes back to the communication. If, they can tell them, here, I'm gonna give you your money back, maybe whatever you paid for inspections, appraisals, I apologize, this is happening in my life, I just can't sell my home right now. Then if they are, hopefully the buyer and the buyer's agent are understanding,
Especially if there's like an illness.
Yeah.
Or, like if the seller suffers like
yeah.
an illness or some kind of loss,
Yeah,
and they're
'cause-
not reselling, they can't just cancel it and then resell it to somebody else. They could just
Yeah.
say, I'm not selling.
Yeah, so just so you know, because I had an agent, this is a few years back, that told her seller that she had a contingency period, just like the buyer. And so the seller wanted to cancel, and so the agent called me and says, how do we cancel? And I asked her, what do you mean? So, when she told me, well, her contingency period's not up. And so I read the contract, I'm like, I don't see a contingency period. What are you talking about? And she says, oh, well, doesn't she have, the 17 days just like the buyer? No. So she misinformed her seller.
Yeah.
And so the seller was furious. So I was able to intervene and got the buyer's agent to understand. The seller did not want to pay for their appraisal and their inspection money because she says, I was misinformed. So we were able to, the agent basically had to pay that money to her to get everybody to, but it was her mistake, for that. So just, you're aware, there's no seller contingency in the contract unless you write it, you include a seller replacement, but remember how you write that too. We've talked about that too, about the salary replacement addendum. make sure that you're protecting them, you know,
Mhm.
so.
And then usually if like, let's say in that case, like they resolved it, you said like the agent ended up paying the money and so forth. So then I'll get the file that nobody resolved, right? The one that might go to like litigation or something. And then honestly, like in a case like that with a seller that just doesn't want to move or sell their property, it is like nearly impossible to force the sale. Like the buyers can say, you know, we're in contract, it's gonna cost them so much money to try to do that, like and be in litigation.
Yeah.
You know, so it just gets so messy and difficult. People just move on to another property.
Yeah, and I think again, it comes back to communication, on how
Yes.
it's communicated.
Mhm.
If Yasmin tells me my seller doesn't wanna sell, it's like, why, Yasmin, what happened? Just cause I have to be able to give that explanation to my client for them to make sense. They're gonna have questions too. So just like, you know, they were looking forward, they're excited, I have to be able to, you know, to keep it calm over here. But when the agent is like being rude and not responding, and you're like, you can't give that peace of mind to your buyer, that's where the friction happens. Then it starts becoming, well, I'm into this, and I'm, you know, it becomes this tug of war, which is unnecessary.
It is, like, most of it is communication, I think.
It is.
I think like most problems actually arise from the lack of communication.
And Rod did say that, because he
Yes.
said that most litigations, when the buyer and the seller finally get to speak, and they were like, I would have done this, I would have done this, it was their agent
Yes.
who made it a bigger deal than it had to be.
Yes.
So,
Are we able to, what is the standard for if the seller decides to change their mind, and we already pay appraisal and inspection, is it standard to ask the sellers for repayment? They don't have to, right? We can just
what are you
request
talking
it.
about?
The right
If the
things.
seller decides to change their mind, during, you know, the whole transaction, but the buyer already paid inspection
I
and
think
appraisal.
I think it would be, I mean,
It's the
that's a
right
courtesy,
thing,
yeah.
like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, but
And-
can we force, like, no, it's just.
I mean,
we
you
just
can't
ask.
force anybody to do anything, but if you notice on the sale replacement property, there is a box for that on there. And that way there's an understanding. It says if the seller doesn't go through, they will reimburse the buyer any fees that have been incurred. Or I've seen agent put that on the, counter offer as well. So it is something that's negotiated. Again, it goes back to being informed and, communication. You don't assume, you know.
Right.
I mean, we don't ever think,
everything in writing.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't ever think that it's gonna cancel if there's no contingency, right, in place. So it's kind of hard to say it there, you know.
Or like, let's say your inspection, you did inspection and the repair to request, you just can't agree.
Oh, well, no, that's
The buyer.
the buyer, yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a risk a buyer takes. You know, and I always, you know, again, tell them, you're out of fee, you know, your out of pocket is paid to a third party that they performed a service, so you can, you know, they're due at time of service.
Right.
You know, so that's a little
Great
bit
way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened to me, and
Everybody's like,
I was also thinking like sellers, for the most part, they don't have a way out. I was representing the buyer on the triplex in Gardena, and the seller could not transfer title to the buyer, even though they had paid, I think it was like $1,500 in inspection, sewage cam, termite, everything. And the guy couldn't transfer the deed because the parcel it had like a deed restriction, a covenant, that the two parcels, the one he bought and they were subdivided, but he had to sell it with the next parcel, and because he couldn't, now he's in litigation, he was a flipper. And he wanted to go back and do that, but because he wasn't able to transfer clear title, I basically told my clients, like, you guys have a choice. Like, you could either amicably agree and they're willing to give you back, reimburse you for your fees, or you can take it to court and who knows, or just move on. We'll find you a next one.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, everything was released.
yeah, so that's, and
Yeah.
that's another, and that's possible too, if there's not clear title, because sometimes there is an issue with title. You know, title may have been transferred a couple times back, and they can't clear that, you know, whatever, that deed that was signed way back when, so, yeah, there's reasons that.
Is that why you say pull pre then as soon as you get a listing?
Yeah.
Even the guy that bought it though, like the investor that bought it, he bought it and the title didn't catch that before. So now he's trying to sue the previous seller for not disclosing that, but it, I don't know, this big old.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's strange.
Okay.
I have a friend.
Are you still thinking about it?
I forget the question.
I'm still thinking about it.
I'm trying to see any
How
question.
you're gonna
I
talk
forget
about
it.
it.
I have a friend for another broker. He paid $2,000 penalty. I asked him why. He told me by new rules or law for the real estate, you have when you contact or with any new client, you have to take a permission from him and sign it like a paper or application, and you have to check first if he didn't ask for not advertising calling. If he included not advertising calling system, you don't have to call him. And if you want to follow up any client, new client, you don't know him, you have to ask him to sign paper before to contact with him. I think it's very weird. And he sent it to me. The Citrus Valley law update is right. Does it make sense?
Yeah, so there is, I mean, I don't really do that, I don't cold call, so I'm not a cold caller, so I don't really know, but I do know that there is, like, they want you to you have to have permission. So it's just on your, like, I know on my CRM, it makes them agree. So like, it's all built into a lot of the stuff that we do already because of that. So I'm not sure how he's contacting them, but that is a big thing, so they have to opt in. It'll say you're opting into all future communications or whatever, and then they have to say yes.
Yeah, but I saw a video from attorney, real estate attorney. You have before to contact with them or say anything, can I take a permission from you to contact with you? It doesn't make sense to call everybody, hello, can I take a permission to call you? I forget what I want to say.
Yeah, we're like, repeat your name
What I understand is that if the persons, they sign for not calling for restrictions, so like this, it's not going to appear, if you add the title or whatever, or buy leads, the phone number is not going to appear there, you know? If the phone number is going to appear just the people that not sign or pay for non-calling.
Oh, I have to check.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
clients.
That's what I understand.
And I don't know how or what, but there was this one client, so I was helping a seller, and then she says, you have to contact my aunt, because she's the other seller. So I was trying to call her, and my phone, I told her, I can't get through, it just goes straight to voicemail. I called her for days. She's like, really? That's so weird. She goes, let me find out. So she is on that do not call list, she told me. She says that, and any number that's not registered in her phone, she has to register you, like, save you as a contact, her phone will not ring.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. And so if you guys are noticing that that's happening, that's why.
Interesting.
But if it rings, it's okay.
Yeah, if it rings, then yeah.
Interesting.
No, but that is interesting. We should probably find out more information about that. But I know like most CRMs, because right now, Yasmin and I are going through that because we just switched to Lofty. And so we had to set up our numbers. You have to go through this whole process to get approved. And now they set it up where anytime we try to reach someone, they have to accept it. So that way we're in compliance.
I'm sorry, say again?
That's interesting.
Hold on, let me rewind it. No, so basically with the CRMs, they know already. So what happens is you have to get approved
With who?
with whoever, I don't even know.
Whoever you're calling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the carrier can be Verizon?
Yes, whatever.
Oh, okay.
But you have to certify, you have to go through all this whole process.
You have to take classes.
No,
Okay.
thank God.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a whole thing because, I mean, think about how many spam calls we get. It's
Yeah,
that's
true.
true.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
another thing, sorry, I saw it in that video, is from January 2025, not allowed to make open house with another broker without permission. and you can't use another agent from another broker
Without permission from who?
To use their
From the
listing or,
for listing.
Oh, that one.
Sometimes I'm looking for somebody to
Do your open
the
house?
travel house. I can get anybody, I can get any agent that has license. Now it's not allowed out of the broker, and if you get somebody from the same broker, you have to take a permission from the broker.
Okay.
the listing
So then
agent.
that means that like a Champions agent can't do a Remax agent's open house?
Yeah.
My case, I showed somebody from Golden Banker, asked somebody from
That's a
Keller
bad
Williams.
word. Don't say those words.
Yeah, so it's not allowed. Before
I haven't
this,
heard that. I'll have to find out. I haven't heard that. Yeah, has anybody heard about that? No, I haven't heard about that.
They work with me like that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to get permission from,
I don't know.
obviously.
No, actually, I heard something like that. They had to get permission from the other pool,
For the broker.
for their broker to do the open house.
Wow.
No,
Not from
it's
the,
not
But
allowed.
he said, he's
Like
saying
written-
it's
It
not
has to
allowed.
be the same, now,
company.
the same.
same broker.
Now you can't.
Before, we can't do anybody, just licensed guy. But now, it has to be in the same broker.
Well, you guys use the app. Is everybody on the app? Use the app and advertise. I've never heard that. I'll have to, thank you for bringing it up. I'll have to ask.
Say that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea about
Yeah.
that.
I heard about
Say that.
Ah,
What does it?
But it's easy probably to
What
get
do
the
you-
permission.
what do you find-
I mean,
what do you
people want,
find
yeah.
Video for,
Yeah. People want to advertise.
regarding MLS.org is like all update regarding the new rules for real estate.
They just
Okay.
sent that, right?
And
Did they send that like 2 days, like a day or two ago on the email? Is that the email you're talking about?
No.
No? Oh, okay, okay. I thought so because
You,
they said,
you saw that in the MLS?
Yeah,
Really?
card.org. You have to contact with him to get any update. Attorney real estate regarding California real estate. It's coming automatically, like videos and some updates.
interesting.
Yeah, it
I'll have to check more into that. I did not know.
Okay,
So we learned something.
last question, what I have to do? I have to choose one. I have to open escrow, ready? I have to open escrow, what I have to
They
do?
said so obviously talk to your buyer, find out which property they want, right? Find out which one they want. And then once you find out which one they want, then you contact the others and you can just say something like what Sonia did. I love that line. You know what, my buyers, we got notification that a property we made a prior offer on, just said that it's accepted, and so we're gonna pass. Like, you have to communicate.
3 months I'm trying to submit offers, I didn't accept it, and today, see,
Now what
accepted,
you lucky
and
that.
check the properties, the properties to hold now. I have 3 properties hold,
Yeah, and
it's accepted, open escrow, hold house.
but you know what,
Before
that's
answer
gonna
to,
be, that's a good lesson, that's what, you know, sometimes happens, is we just wanna throw offers on the wall and you can't do that. You have to let it expire
I
and then,
did a lot, I didn't accept it.
yeah.
I submit another offers over $50,000
But why
listing, I
they
didn't
open
accept it.
escrow without letting you know?
Huh?
Why they open escrow?
You don't
They
open
shouldn't
escrow.
say.
He hasn't yet, like, you just have the 3 offers accepted.
Oh, it's not open.
Yeah.
It is.
No, no, today I will
He has to
choose one.
notify
Oh.
the agent before they open.
Yeah, still.
So, about the BRBC.
But I'm scared because the
Ah,
house is
yes,
old.
you're, I
Another
didn't even
house is
talk
in
about
Home.
the situation that you have. We'll talk about Vita's
Yeah,
situation next time.
I will take it, I will take another one, old.
And maybe Vita will be here.
Yeah.
We can talk about her in the group. But I think that we're over on time. So I think we'll stop the recording here, right, Morgan? And any other, questions or anything, I'm glad you guys came. We can all learn from each other, like Lala said, just coming together, learning from each other on different scenarios. Real estate can be beautiful, but it can be very sticky and tricky as well. So we need to be very smart, aware, and savvy with what we're doing and how we're conducting business. So definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.